OCs, the little guys in your head that take up all your free time, maladaptive daydreaming about the stories that you've never actually written down in any meaningful way. I love my OCs, and I have a lot of them. Like, I spent one NaNoWriMo doing synopsises for their stories and made it to 32 before the month ended level of OCs. And the inspiration for these characters comes from all different places. Some are from retellings of other stories, other comes from dreams I've had, or collections of tropes or character traits that I've smushed together into a new little guy. And of course I also have characters like Miss Mory, who I first made back in 2020 simply because I wanted to have a cute character dress up in Mory, Kai, and Lolita fashion. She didn't really have any story or lore behind her, just a cute witch who wore cute outfits. And that was how she stayed until early 2024 when I decided I wanted to start working towards one of my big bucket list goals, which is to table at an art market. Unlike something like an artist hall at a convention, an art market is pretty separate from fandom, so something like fan merch probably wouldn't sell well, and there's also plenty of art markets that either discourage or only allow original content. And so when I was deciding what kind of art I would want to make, I remembered Miss Mory. With how popular cottagecore and witchy themes are nowadays, I figured others would like her enough to buy prints of her, even if they didn't know the character personally. But it'd be too lonely if it was just her and her familiars, so let's give her some friends and flesh out her story some more. The first step will be to redraw Miss Mory, but unfortunately I have a bad case of cannot commit to a single art styleitis. I don't know why, but I've always liked to change my style based on what character I draw. Some characters just look better when you give them a style that fits their themes, you know? So first things first is style studies. The three big inspirations for Miss Mory are Precious Moments, Lisa Frank, and the pinup girl Hilda. I feel Precious Moments is the most obvious out of all the inspirations based on the original drawings I have of Mory. I really love the delicate line work and rounded shapes of this style, as well as how much detail is often present in the clothing. Lisa Frank I couldn't quite capture properly here with Mory, but it looks a bit better with her familiar, but I really like how the style has bold outlines and a strong and memorable use of color throughout. For Hilda, on the other hand, I feel like her inclusion is based purely on vibes. This is a character that I've seen posters of since I was a little kid, and when looking at pictures of Hilda, so much of her personality comes through in each illustration. She's very fun-loving and has a figure that's fairly close to Mory's, so I wanted to give this more realistic style an attempt. After I finished those, I combined aspects I liked from each as well as some additional preferences and made a style guide as a reference for both Mory's redesign and all the future characters going forward. While I would like to eventually have a large cast of characters for this universe, I want to start off with a core cast of 3 witches, with each being differentiated by their magic type, color scheme, and fashion sense. So first up is the one who started this whole project off, Miss Mory. As I've already mentioned, Mory was based on my love for Lolita and Mory Kai fashion, which is where her name originally came from. While some of her designs, like her main splash illustration, show some newer Lolita design choices, I really love the look of old-school classic Lolita. Stuff that doesn't use heavy patterning, but rather layered colors, textures, and the occasional flower print. A big inspiration for her comes from the Gothic and Lolita Bibles that I had collected when I was a kid, and specifically all the street photos that were included in them. Though since I normally draw her in full Lolita, I wanted to try to do a few outfits with a bit more cottagecore influence. While her name did initially come from her fashion style, when naming her familiar, I decided on Memento because I thought it'd be a fun nod to the Latin Memento Mori, meaning remember death. I think I'll be carrying on that naming convention to the main witches in the cast going forward to tie them together. As for the story, Mory and her friends live in a small village nestled at the base of a large mountain range surrounded by an expansive forest called the Gwendolwood. Mory's home is a cute and cozy cottage a little bit further into the Gwendolwood to help heighten her magical powers. It's because Mory is known as the Herb Witch and uses her powers not only to help plants grow, but also to draw out more of their healing properties in her work as an apothecary. She works fairly closely with the town doctor, and they send patients to her to pick up whatever potions or tinctures they need to get to feeling better. She loves her work, and with her naturally kind and bubbly personality, her neighbors often find themselves at her doorstep, looking for a chat over one of her famous cups of herbal tea. In a lot of ways, she acts as the heart of her little town, always willing to lend an ear to others. It's a big contrast to her father, whom she learned magic from, who's very grumpy and reclusive, especially in comparison to Mory. Mory herself is still fairly new to working by herself, as her father retired only recently. But she's not fully alone, as she has her familiar Memento, a brown tabby with a crooked tail watching over her. Memento acts almost as a foil to her, with a wry and sardonic sense of humor. He'll help her with her work on occasion, but he'd rather sent collecting sun in a windowsill. In Mory's world, familiars take the shapes of animals, but they can be thought of more so as spirits or elementals. They take form based on their owner and live alongside them from the first moment they acquire magic until their final breath. Familiars like Memento can talk, but the only humans that can hear them are those that they are bonded to. The next character in the lineup is Miss Mory's girlfriend, Miss Fati. Continuing on the Latin phrase-based names, Fati and her familiar Amor make a pairing that means love of fate. It also gets paired up with Miss Mory's naming convention, with Memento Mori Amor Fati, carrying the meaning of remember you must die, but love your fate, which I think works well with the couple. In contrast to Mory's cottage witch vibes, I wanted Fati to have more of a traditional gothic witchy look to her, though I also mixed in a bit of punk fashion to her design to help add some variety to her outfits. In general, I think the goth fits tend to be more formal, while the punk-based ones are more casual. And while I did toy around with making her albino for a bit, I ultimately decided that I didn't want to rely on the pale goth stereotype with her design, and went back and forth for a bit trying out several different options before deciding on giving her vitiligo, with tattoos charting out different constellations on her body. Which works especially well as Fati is the celestial witch. Having the power to see into the future by charting the stars makes Fati not only the most powerful witch in her village, but also one of the top witches in the country. She comes from a long line of celestial witches that doubled as the leaders of their village, taking over the position from her grandfather. While her magic is quite powerful and runs in her family line, it can often skip a generation or two, with neither her mother or elder brother possessing any magic at all, and her aunt, while capable of magic, not able to inherit the same celestial magic as Fati and her grandfather. Fati lives in her ancestral home, a beautiful and ornate observatory where she can chart the stars. One of the main parts of her job is to essentially work as an early warning system for the kingdom. She has designated people, often the leaders of other towns across the country, that she reads the futures of weekly to alert them of any natural disasters or accidents that may happen in their territories. Despite all the power and status that she wields, she's a very down-to-earth person, with a calm and collected personality. It's only when she's around Mory or her good friends that she lets loose a little more and is more prone to smiling and laughing. Amor, her familiar, takes her job quite seriously, helping act as Fati's eyes when the weather is too overcast. And as opposed to Fati, she does take her job position a bit too seriously at times, and acts a bit snobbish around the other familiars in the village. Last but not least is the only male witch in the core cast, Mr. Diem. And while witch does tend to carry a more feminine connotation, in this universe all people with magic are referred to as witches, and I wanted to make sure at least one member of the main cast showed that off. If it's not immediately obvious, Diem's name comes from Carpe Diem, or seize the day. I wanted to design Diem to really encapsulate the saying in both personality and design. Speaking of design, Diem's was actually based on an artist I liked way back when I was a kid, who drew witches in clear and tinted plastic witch hats. I loved the atmosphere of the work and had wanted to design Diem's wardrobe around that general aesthetic. Normally at this point I would tell you who the artist is and show you some examples, but sadly, even after weeks spent searching, I couldn't find the original artist or their work. So if anyone does know who I'm talking about, please comment, because I am dying to see their work again. Tangent aside, for Diem's style I decided to go with a mix of solar punk and vaporwave fashion, with an emphasis on plastic and holographic clothes. And while any outfit he wears does seem like it is a contender for a Sophia Nygaard questionable fashion video, I think I enjoyed designing his outfits even more so than I did for the girls. I debated a little bit on whether I wanted his main color scheme to be pink or orange, but in the end I chose the latter. Both look good on him, but having the main three's color scheme being green, black, and orange really makes for a nice Halloween-y color scheme. Diem is the youngest of the main cast, and the only one of the three that didn't grow up in the village. Instead, he grew up in the big city with a detective mom and a lawyer father. The two do love Diem, but their constant pressure pushing him to do better eventually caused Diem to burn out and drop out of college. Worried about him, his parents send him to live with his cousin as he takes a gap year or two from school. Nowadays, Diem switches back and forth between a whole host of temp jobs as he tries to figure out what he wants to do going forwards. I kind of had a Nancy Drew-like inspiration when I was making him. He takes after both parents in various ways, but more obviously his mom, as he considers himself an amateur detective. Which in his defense he is good at, especially with the help of his magic. Diem is known as the Neon Witch, and his magic allows him to find things, almost like a mini-map in a game. All he needs is a copy or something related to what he's looking for, and his magic will light his path. Diem is extremely smart and contains a nearly endless supply of random trivia. Alongside that, he's still trying to get over the endless pressure of being the best at everything, so he can swing wildly between overly invested and aloof as he tries to figure out a healthy middle ground. Alongside him is his familiar Carpe, an Eastern newt. She may be small, but her personality is just as big as Diem's. The both of them can be a bit nosy, but they mean well. Carpe is a lot more adventurous than Diem is, though, and often pushes him to go off the beaten path, a lot more than he would have otherwise. I really love how the main three came out, and while I do definitely want to design more of the cast in the future, I first want to think more about the products I want to make with these three, to move towards my goal of tabling at an art market. Due to the current state of where I live, a lot of the options I initially had for them, like pins and potion shaker charms, might be a bit further into the future than I initially planned when I first started remaking these guys, but other options I'm still pushing forwards with. I'm still currently in the process, but I've been putting in a ton of work to hopefully have a stationery set designed around each of the three main cast members, and one of the items I've been designing, which is washi tape, you can see making up the backgrounds of each of their profile pictures. And hopefully by this time next year, I might be able to show you guys an unboxing video of some of their stuff, or even a video about my first art market experience. All in all, I'm really excited for these guys and can't wait to do more with them. But that's everything I have for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you stuck around until the end, please consider subscribing. It'd mean a lot. I have a ton of cool stuff coming up in the future, including art fight prep and a few other big projects that'll be happening later in the year that I can't wait to share with you all. Alright, bye!